Hello, all you spry tubers, twitchers, and pod people out there. Welcome to the Could You Do It Better podcast, where filmmaker, gamer extraordinaire, and the behind-the-scenes awesomeness known as Sesh, and the writing and directing sensation known as Maria, discuss popular television shows and movies and answer the always controversial question of, could you do it better? Today, we will be discussing Season 1 of Ryan Condal's House of the Dragon television series based upon George R.R. Martin's novel, Fire and Blood. And as for me, I'm Jonathan the Intern, and unlike our two experts, have no industry experience whatsoever. In other words, I'm much like, well, Season 1 of House of the Dragon. I use exposition at will, my character is undeveloped, half my scenes are shot in the dark, and every time a viewer hears my voice, they're wondering when the next time skip is. And now, to Sesh and Maria. Woo! Yeah, you like that? I brought it all together there.
Very concise.
Yeah. How about that? Season 1. We watched it the whole way through. We finished it. We did each episode. But now it's time for what everybody wants to hear, our recap. As mandated by our legal department. Oh, and yes, spoiler warning. In this episode, of course, we'll be doing a recap of the entire first season. So if you haven't watched the season and don't want to hear spoilers before you do, please feel free to put us on mute as you watch the episode, then rewatch our show afterwards, because that's how you double view counts. And now, onto the Season 1 recap. We begin at Episode 1, where we are introduced to over 50 characters, of which at least 40 clearly have other acting gigs as they don't show up again this season. This is followed by King Viserys not just giving a helping hand to his wife during childbirth difficulties, but multiple forearms in her split open body. Shockingly, this results in his wife's death, him naming his daughter his heir, and the mandated prophecy / reference to the Game of Thrones because, as we all know, winter is coming in only 157 short time skips. On to Episode 2, where King Viserys has been selected to be this season's The Bachelor. Will he choose child bride Laena Velaryon, or perhaps a lady from another prominent house to strengthen his kingdom and bloodline? No. Much to the chagrin of everyone except for the viewing audience, he chooses his daughter's childhood best friend, Alicent, because she wore her mother's dress at her dad's urging and gave him a custom stone dragon miniature for his D&D game. Rhaenyra is pissed. In Episode 3, Rhaenyra sneaks off with Sir Criston Cole on a romantic rendezvous to kill boars in the forest, while Daemon engages in what everyone has been waiting for, the final battle of the 3-year War of the Stepstones. Will we see incredible battle tactics? An awesome mano-y-mano between Daemon and the Crab Feeder's hammer technique? The death or maiming of a few key characters that will drive future storyline? Well, I'm sure whatever it is will be awesome. Oh, it's Daemon idiotically taking on the entire guerrilla army himself and killing them all, then killing the Crab Feeder off screen all in under 5 minutes. Okay, then. On to Episode 4, where Daemon comes back to King's Landing with intent to show up on a Chris Hansen's How to Catch a Predator by taking his underage niece to an orgy and attempting to sexually assault her, but stops before committing full-on incest because, honestly, who knows? As such, the hot and bothered Rhaenyra jumped the bones of the first guy she sees in Sir Criston Cole. Otto the Hand blabs to the whole kingdom about Rhaenyra's night with Daemon, further fracturing Rhaenyra and Alicent's friendship, and Rhaenyra drinks a morning after tea. In Episode 5, Daemon kills his wife of the Vale. Rhaenyra gets betrothed to Laenor, much to Sir Criston's contempt, and Sir Criston tells Alicent that Rhaenyra and him had an illicit affair, leading her to show up late to Rhaenyra and Laenor's wedding, showing disapproval by wearing an inappropriately colored dress to upstage the bride. Oh, also Sir Criston bashes the head in of Laenor's lover. 10 years pass. And we're in Episode 6, where we find Rhaenyra had 3 bastard children, Lord Commander Strong, and Alicent is peeved about it because King Viserys won't embarrass his own daughter. So Alicent does the reasonable thing and basically commands Larys to kill his own father and brother / Rhaenyra's lover so her daddy could be hand again and make all her decisions for her. In episode 7, Daemon and Rhaenyra have sex at Daemon's wife's Laena's funeral, while Alicent's son Aemon gets his eye slashed out by Rhaenyra's son Luke for stealing Laena's dragon that was intended for one of Daemon's daughters. Whew. Alicent cuts Rhaenyra with the dagger of prophecy out of vengeance, and Rhaenyra stages the death of her husband Laenor so she can marry Daemon. On to episode 8, where Corlys's brother Vaemon goes to Kangaroo Court to proclaim himself rightful ruler of Driftmark instead of Rhaenyra's son Luke on the legal technicality of she a hoe. But instead of a kangaroo court finding in his favor, King Viserys in one of his final actions delivers a magnificent regal performance, ruling that Vaemon has no grounds to challenge this. Vaemon speaks up and loses his head. Viserys has one final dinner with the fam, then on his deathbed tells Alicent of the Game of Thrones prophecy. In episode 9, Viserys dies, and the Hightower plot to usurp rightful heir Rhaenyra's claim to the throne by installing Alicent's son Aegon, the rightful and maniacal, as king comes into motion. All dissenters are rounded up and imprisoned or killed. And as Aegon is sword pumping during his coronation, Rhaenys busts through the dragon pit floor and escapes captivity with her dragon. Oh, yeah. And also, Alicent responds to Larys' send nudes DMs with some well-framed footsies. And in the season finale, on the cusp of war, Rhaenyra secured Rhaenys and Corlys's allegiance. But unfortunately, Rhaenyra also showed herself to be ill-prepared and naive diplomatically, and sent her son Luke alone to Storm's End to negotiate with the Baratheons, only for him to be promptly devoured by Aemon's dragon. Prepare for war, buccos. It's time for these dragons to get a dancing. And season 1.
Nice. Very good.
This episode is brought to you by our season 1 sponsors. To all you fans out there, when you're out on your Caribbean carousal vacation and you're forced to decide between wearing your purely protection outerwear to fine eating establishment known as Ho's Crab Shack, now with the beast beneath stone floors, or nestling up on the hotel beachside oasis with your historical affairs book at the always beautifully lit fireside gaming table while waiting on your fresh, never foul foods catered meal, just know that you're only a tube of dragon spackle and your state-of-the-art hydrostatic suppression system away from ensuring you'll never bleed out, catch fire, or damage that beautiful Boar and Beauty Works Boar Blood Body Wash exfoliated skin. Because if there's one thing we know about purchasing products from our season 1 sponsors, is that you could not do it better. Back to you, Sesh and Maria.
That was awesome. Brilliant work right there.
That recap. Was it perfect? I think so.
Oh man, really, I was upset with legal when we started doing these recaps. I really was. I'm like, why do we need this? But honestly,
They're brilliant.
legal knows what they're doing.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
I love them. Okay, so our first question of the evening is, what was, in your opinion, the best and worst developed characters in the season? I'm going to start off this one. I think King Viserys was definitely the most developed character. His weaknesses and choices, or lack thereof, were consistent and allowed for a deeper, more feeling king to show through as he dealt with debilitating disease. The love he felt for his daughter that stood the test of time was truly touching. Daemon, as I think most will say, is a pretty poorly developed character. However, I would argue he isn't the worst. I would say Aegon's character makes little sense and is going to be a hard character to hate or love to hate in the subsequent season because there are just too many holes in his development. Even more than Daemon, because one could argue Daemon has been trying to be a good guy or of sorts the whole time, but just doing it the wrong way. Aegon is two different characters. One, an immature pothead who just wants to sleep all day and ignore his sister wife, The other, a scheming, sadistic maniac running underworld child fights. He fights tooth and nail to not be king, and when he is crowned, he seems to get a kick out of it. After having a dragon almost kill him, I would think he would run for the hills right there instead of just stick behind his mom. That also didn't make sense.
That is a wonderful way to break down Aegon's character in 2 sentences.
Thank you.
I'm going to try doing it in 1 in mine,
Okay.
but the 2 sentences were key.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree that King Viserys's character had by far the most character progression. On its surface, Viserys is a simple character, just a guy who hates a job that's killing him, wishing he could spend his time philosophizing and seeing everyone getting along and smiling instead of constantly fighting. But the writers gave this character additional depth in showing he could be a good king if only he had the resolve to do so, and just made it seem there was much more there than just a weak fool that burned his kingdom to the ground. And again, this was sort of novel in the series because there weren't a whole ton of well-developed characters, in my opinion. And, just a lot to choose from for the poorest developed character. As Maria said, Daemon certainly fits the bill, as his character progression has been all over the map. Almost like they randomly pull out of a hat each episode how he's going to behave. And in fact, after a full season of watching this show, I still have no idea what actually motivates him or what his character desires. Then there's Alicent, whose character behaves almost like she's constantly forgetting what happened in the previous episode. So her character progression is more like constant regression back to base state of just being a mouthpiece for whatever father figure is around her that episode. Unless you call a raging hand and foot disease character development. And then there's Aegon, who literally has no backstory other than he's a serial rapist who breeds women for the purpose of making sure there's always enough children available to participate in the underground baby fight club he established. But I'm going to go with Sir Criston Cole.
Oh.
Because the writers made it seem that they wanted to develop this character and give him a backstory, only to basically throw that in the trash so he can just be Alicent's thug foot soldier whose motivation is hurting people to do Alicent's bidding.
You know what? You make a very good point with that, because why spend time on him if that's all it is? He would just be a background character.
Yep.
Very good point.
Yeah. Wow. That almost makes me want to change my answer to him. Yeah, I mean, 2 answers in 1, maybe. Daemon's first wife. Very, very developed and then very not developed at the same time. But for really though, I actually liked Rhaenys the most, so maybe I'm a little biased on that. But she didn't have much of an arc this season. She was already done with it all. Her husband, however, over the course of a lot of episodes, was warmer to her viewpoints, and I really liked that journey for him too. They were both constants and had a lot of loss while I was staying true to who I felt they were and growing closer after their experiences, and then eventually coming to the same conclusions. King Viserys was also very consistent, which is, like you said, it's refreshing in this show. He didn't have a lot of growth, also similar to what you had said, that he doesn't quite have a whole lot of layers. But he did change his feelings towards others, which is a form of growth, especially his family, for example, like banishing and welcoming Daemon. It really did feel like he was working through a very long 20-year process of falling apart and dying and wanting to make amends between family, at least, which is a nice sentiment. Would have been nicer for everyone else if he had set up, order of things in his passing to try to avoid a war instead of just being a little delusional about what he laid out. But, it was kind, and as evidenced by a lot of the choices he didn't make, such as marrying his daughter's best friend, he was more than a little blind to others' feelings at times, even if he was well-meaning in his actions. But again, that was something that was consistent, and there were areas of growth, even if not, some areas had any change. By far, I would say the worst are like Damon and Aegon, that copying everything you said. Like they were just all over the place. I don't know which direction they were going with stuff. Every episode was very different. Scene to scenes weren't quite super different, but there were still some changes in there where I just didn't see consistency between them.
Yep.
Well, okay, so our next question is, which point in time do you think the season should have started and ended? What do you think, Jonathan?
So for me, I would have straight up cut the first 7 episodes of the season. As looking back, I feel they added almost nothing to the series. In fact, several key plot points, like the Battle of the Stepstones and Daemon and Rhaenyra's character arcs, were pretty much reset entirely by that point. Plus, you get to skip several of the completely unnecessary graphic birthing and grooming rape scenes, along with all of the time skips. So that's a plus as well. I would have started in episode 8. However, I would have rewritten that episode to focus more on the turmoil within the Targaryen household at the end of Viserys' reign. It's likely a second episode would be necessary here to allow for time to be spent developing each of the major players before all hell breaks loose in episodes 9 and 10. But that's where I would have started and added episodes past the finale to continue progressing the story and filling out the 10-episode season. I think this would have been a much cleaner and tighter show. It would have eliminated the need for multiple time skips and recasting, and it would have allowed for primary focus to be on the A storyline instead of the B, C, and D storyline. Season 1, I felt completely over-presented, almost submerging and completely sidetracking that A storyline.
Yeah. Oy, gosh, so I really believe that this season should have started after both Ray Ray and Alicent were already mothers. Not only would we have skipped a lot of the boring or meaningless stuff that could have been skipped over or just mentioned in passing with a little quality exposition, but I felt we needed and still need more time to get to know all the children and, the potential heirs in play. I would have liked to have spent more time on Ray Ray and Alicent's relationship and the strain and frustration, but maybe even the desire to still be friends come through, while also spending more time with on their own allies and the family relationships they all have. All of which would have laid out a better groundwork for the battles and personal conflicts to come. I do feel appreciation for the war essentially being started by those around them rather than them themselves, being Alicent or Ray Ray. I felt it ended actually at a really good spot though. Like not bad for a season 1 ending for me.
Yeah, I like both of your takes on that. I think this season should have started with the last episode and ended after they explore various kingdoms and how each potential ruler tries to win them over, with an ultimate betrayal by one of them, ending the season on a cliffhanger. I really think this entire season was a waste of time because it didn't lay much character development down for us. Instead, it felt like a choose your own character game where they really never show us what anyone does, but we can decide for ourselves which kind of character each person is and go with that. A little frustrating.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
So our next question is, who is the villain of the season? Mwahaha. I would say Alicent is the villain. Sadly, if anything was accomplished this season, it was watching the evolution of a villain in Alicent's growth. Her reaction to being betrayed or lied to is to hold a grudge and let murderers run amok. She allows for all kinds of bad behavior under her leadership, including from her sons, and just turns a blind eye. Well, lack of action does not mean innocence. She is the queen and allows her father to take control and arrest people when she could literally command the knights to put her dad in jail and make the better decisions for the kingdom. She plays the victim because she doesn't have the guts to admit she wanted Rhaenyra's lover to die. She wanted her son on the throne. She wants all these things to happen just without her feeling guilty for it. That is a villain, just a passive villain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Terrific points made. And I think one that I know I've been harping on all season with Alicent's character. You know, sometimes doing nothing is doing something, and she wasn't quite doing nothing either. But for villain, for me, would it be cheating if I said that shirking responsibility or not doing your job is the villain of season one? I know it's a little sketchy here, but you know, we start with Viserys, who does everything he can to not make decisions as king and just be a normal guy, and it results with him muddying the line of succession and fracturing his kingdom. You know, we have Rhaenyra, who thumbs her nose at strengthening her hold on the throne through marriage and children, ultimately leading to her getting usurped. And we have her refusal to take any action against the treasonous Hightowers or Otto's warning of bloodshed, leading to her losing her son Luke. We have Otto shirking his responsibilities to the kingdom in favor of his own deceitful desires. And we have Alicent, who refuses to act the part of queen, instead ceding all authority to her duplicitous father and the deplorable Larys. House of the Dragon shows a society in which nobody takes any responsibility for their actions and selfishly puts themselves and their own desires above even the most basic necessities for the kingdom, and how that only ends in downfall and bloodshed. That said, if you're talking about true season one villain, it'd be Otto Hightower. However, Alicent Hightower is not only ceding to every part of Otto's plan, but also taking an active role in it, as well as her willingness to step into an arrangement with Larys, both before and after he killed the Hand and Rhaenyra's lover. For her, probably makes her even more villainous in this story. And I'm thinking we will see that in the second season.
Wow. I think I'm convinced it's Alicent. I'm now convinced. No, but I would say the showrunners.
Yay!
Like this, I mean, as much as you do bring up very good points with Alicent, I feel like this season has no main villain. It had like some baddies, like her, but like no actual villain. Like Daemon does bad things and has some terrible methods, but we know he cares for our main character and is her ally, and even is the king's ally too. And we are made to believe that these are our main protagonists. Alicent is just clueless or complacent in everything and does nothing conniving or actionable on her own that drives the plot, really. So it's hard to call her a main villain because she's just there watching everything happen. I also think it's possible at one point she'll just say screw everyone. She's just going to not fight for the throne anymore. Like just walk away. Like I suspect like that's in her, that she wants to do that. Which again isn't great for a villain for what this conflict is. Her dad is just selfish, but is sitting exactly where he wants to be for most of the show, like as the Hand. Like he's not trying to actually sit on the throne himself. He's in the position where he gets to do it, and the king's more of a figurehead as it is, which is exactly what he wants. But yeah, like his whole plot it's literally just not a surprise at all. It was a constant open secret to us, the audience, and pretty much all of the characters too. So nobody was working against him, really. Aegon, the Brat King, isn't even in half of the show and doesn't do anything to any main characters. He's just there. Crabfeeder was a nobody in the end. There are just a lot of antagonistic characters, but no through person as a baddie to me in this series.
Really good points.
Yeah, do you think that if they made Otto less blatant and a little bit more behind the scenes, that would have significantly helped season one? Or do you think that really that would have helped a little bit, but mainly just how season one was even written, it just wouldn't have helped too much?
I mean, I just don't know how relevant he is, because it's just set up from the beginning. There's a bunch of people that are just not going to settle for Ray Ray being, the ruler already. So like there wasn't anything he even had to do. Like he could have just been changed out with any other character, and like, yep, that's just what other characters think as well. Like he doesn't feel like he's like the leader of this coup or anything,
Yeah.
or this movement, whatever.
It's kind of interesting that he wanted to make so many decisions, and yet, even with a passive king, couldn't have influenced. Like, by the time you can't influence a guy that doesn't even want to be ruling, what makes you think you can influence everybody else? It's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's very weird.
So, our next question of the night is, if you were one of the directors of this season, which episode would you have wanted to have directed? I'll start with this one. If I had control over the story, I would choose the first episode. I wouldn't have made his wife's dialogue so on the nose about her upcoming birth with Rhaenyra and Viserys. Instead, I would have had a scene where Rhaenyra and Emma, are humiliated in front of Viserys for one, being a girl, and two, being a mother to only a girl. Rhaenyra would get frustrated by this and attempt to talk back, but her mother holds her back and shows her that wisdom is lost on fools, as Viserys looks on. I would have Emma be the one to tell Rhaenyra about the Song of Ice and Fire, if that's like the guiding thing for her, but in a way that felt more weighty, like adding more to it than just that threat, but a warning about icy hearts and a message about what rulership really is. So that when Rhaenyra later holds on to that, it is more touching because it came from her as her mom's last message. In that way, it would have shown that her mother had a big effect on her and how she will rule, which in my mind gives a feeling that women are more empowered, as is the general theme of the show.
Wow.
I would also have liked to see Rhaenyra fight to be in or near the birthing room, but her mother insists she go to the jousting. Then she begs her dad and makes him promise to do right by her. So when he does make the decision to kill her in favor of the son, it is that much more wounding to their relationship. This drives Viserys' desire stronger to make things right by his daughter in the future. As for the birthing scene, I would definitely have not shown it the way it was done. I would have made it really look like she could have survived if he chose to tell the maesters to save her life and get rid of the baby, so that when he does choose to risk her life, it is that much more gut-wrenching. I think maybe one scene where the maester does one dramatic cut and showing a great loss of blood, then cut away. That's all that's necessary.
Wow. Can you tell that that Maria here has won some awards as a writer? That was absolutely superb.
Oh,
I would definitely have signed up to watch that show.
I would absolutely watch that. Those are some fantastic changes, and they're subtle enough and keep the main plot of what we got for the first episode, but add so much. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yes, directing one like that would be excellent with a good script behind it like that. My thoughts were also directing the first opening, but if we could have started the season with how I had preferred, entirely with the plot, with opening the season, where we lay down the foundation and with quick bite-sized mouthfuls of who each of these characters were and their relationships to each other, and a more dynamic time in the storyline. Again, after both of our main girls are mothers. I love what your idea for the stories. I think that would be definitely better, but if it were me directing just the first one, I would have liked to see that. I would speak a bit more on this and some of the other things I would have done overall in another question, but in short, I think a lot more could have been established with subtlety and a little more interactions with characters, instead of like, say, a big jousting tournament and aggressive medieval birthing scene that leads to a highly foreshadowed and predictable death. Yeah, a mother's message would have been absolutely wonderful, especially since I think as a life lesson, that would have actually made the excuse of using the thing I hate, which is that the old dream, premonition, it would have actually made it so hearing it multiple times and giving it meaning would have actually given it meaning instead of just being this thing thrown at their faces.
Yeah, no, great stuff as well, Sesh.
Yeah.
You guys handled this question. So yeah, episode 1, I shoot it in the dark the whole episode. No,
You're on track.
Yeah. No, for maybe hear dragons screeching in the background, and just birthing scenes every 5 minutes. That's the whole episode, and perfect. Bam. 18 million.
Dragon and a woman give birth at the same time.
This is why I'd hire you guys on to my writing team. 18 million fans can't be wrong. So, no. I actually went in a different direction, so this is good. People will hear a little bit different. For me, I definitely would have wanted to take a crack at episode 3, which is the Battle of the Stepstones. Ooh. First off, after reading the script, I'd say, what in the hell are we doing? Spending a full hour on this royal hunt that goes absolutely nowhere and only 5 minutes on the Battle of the Stepstones. The thing people actually want to see. Also, where's the crab feeder Damon fight scene? I think someone accidentally forgot to staple those pages to the script. Can you please get those on there? I think there was a collating issue. I then use my power as director, because I think this is what directors do, to force the writers to trim down the royal hunt to 10 minutes at most, and then use the rest of the time to focus on the Battle of the Stepstones, working with medieval military historians to create a unique battle featuring an army attempting to overtake a fortified and deeply entrenched guerrilla army. I would make this the bloody affair it deserved, featuring a last gasp attempt by Damon, Corlys, and Vaemond to take the Stepstones, sending wave upon wave to lure out enemies to get them in dragon range with heavy losses on both sides. And end the episode with Damon finally breaking through the line of defense to go up against the crab feeder in a mano-a-mano battle viewers would still be talking about to this day. I'd feature the crab feeder using a highly aggressive, animalistic dual hammer wielding technique mixed with aspects of parkour. So a super fast, super athletic, keeping Damon constantly on the defensive, trying to keep Damon from getting struck by the hammers, but also making sure he isn't within arm's reach to be touched by the grayscale. Damon would be on the rope several times, even perhaps being forced to abandon his sword, climaxing and Damon finding a brief moment for counterattack and making an athletic move of his own, cracking the crab feeder's shell and taking his head Highlander style. Lightning strikes and dragon fire in the background, and a rousing lute and harpsichord rendition of I am immortal, I have inside me blood of queens, just playing us out in the credits. Yeah, it'd have been epic. Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm imagining that crab just like spinning around. That is great.
Crab versus dragon, right?
Episode 3.
You killed it. That was amazing.
Great take on it. I'm for that.
Luckily, I'd have it all filmed on my little cardboard camera, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is wonderful," and everything would be little felt puppets, miniatures, but it'd be great.
McLeod. Okay, number 5. If you were asked to be the showrunner for House of the Dragon and given loads of monies to do a pre-season, knowing that the scripts are and very little time to rewrite, would you take the job?
Ooh. Let's see.
Sesh?
Oh, here we go. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I lost my place for just a second. I looked away because I'm opening my soda. So not booze, just the soda. Let's see. So, yes, absolutely. I don't blame them at all for accepting the job. I just blame them for the lack of focus and the rush job story they told just so they could get to the first real season. Speaking of lack of focus, my soda, of course. So I really can't blame them. But the world really is very rich, and even though they know where the characters are going and their fates, it somehow felt like they lost sight of that with a lot of the characters and the plot points they chose to spend time on. The world is the kingdoms. Let me see. I would have spent more time on establishing the world. We know the landmarks and we know the territories and the kingdoms and all of that, but like we don't know the politics of this era or why things are like more sexist than they are in the future. And like also with the only remnants of Valerians existing in Game of Thrones, I would have really loved to have spent more time with them and their culture and their ways. Like I want to see the secrets to making Valerian steel, and that gets lost in the ages. Like this is really, it was a warless and like minor conflict era that they're focusing on, and they spent so much time in that without giving us a lot else of what was going on in the world. I really would have loved to have dived more into the characters and established their goals and relationships between like each other better. Finding more of the personal conflicts within, the closer family units and the complicated relationships. Like it could have really made things emotionally powerful if more of the characters cared about, well, more of the characters on what eventually becomes like the opposing sides of the war.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting topic that with the sexism. It's funny that their value system is all like, oh no, we can't have a woman ruler, yet they still allow women to ride dragons. You would think that would be like, no, we can't have them have that kind of power because then they could maybe potentially rule. That seems like a little bit of a
oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't get that, this era being more sexist is going to have anything to do with anything. Like I don't think they're going to actually have a point to tell about it. And there's a lot of things like that. And I'm just like, why are you focusing on this thing?
Yeah, I agree. I would foolishly take the job because wow, what an opportunity. However, I think I would have drilled down exactly what I could and couldn't get away with. With a desired quick turnaround. So, I mean, I would lay out a Bible for the writer's room and the directors to show them the big picture important elements that have to be in the show. Firstly, a detailed breakdown of the character arcs, breakdown of each character's desire and weakness and how they each go after their goals, and analyze the A, then B, then C elements of the story pretty clearly. After that, I would have a meeting to see what exactly is important information building up to season 2 and what is not as important and go from there. I think knowing that information would have prevented me from doing a ton of time skips because instead of necessarily focusing on events, I'm focusing on how to reveal each character's desire and weakness along with how they clash with each other. And that can be told more succinctly. I think they were trying to focus on the genesis of some of the characters' desires, but it felt flat to me because the genesis of many of these characters' desires are not really that earth-shattering.
Yeah, they're really, really, really basic characters, and that, I'd say it seems like that would make it easy, but in some ways it does make it harder because you have to figure out a way to give them depth, and if you don't spend the time doing that, or writing it out, or giving them motivations, like things start falling flat in a hurry. So for me, I think it would be one of those things where you say, yes, of course, right away, HBO sirs. then you start making ka-ching, ka-ching sounds and playing, all I do is win, win, win. For an hour, followed by excitedly calling everyone you know, saying you hit it big. Call up that one teacher you had who said you'd never amount to anything just to ask them if 7 figures qualifies as an amount. All of those super professional stuff that you do. And then the scripts would arrive. And that reality of impending doom would just sink in hard. You know, the first thing I would do is I'd separate out the major characters and necessary minor characters and get the character sheets created for them. All other characters I put in the pile next to the trash heap. You know, if you need them, they're there. If somebody knocks them over, no big loss. I then work with the round table to figure out what story we want to tell in this one season prequel with these characters and come up with the path such that they can be properly developed.
Yeah.
And then I'd work day and night, since we're so little time, with the writer's room to rewrite the scripts to match that in what little time
Lock 'em in.
we have. Oh, absolutely. Nobody is leaving. You know, you'd be allowed, you know, one night of sleep, but three full days of being awake between those. You know, that's about it. You know, I'd ultimately, this is just me looking at it, I'd likely focus on clashing Alicent Otto and her children's motivational drivers against Rhaenyra, Laenor, Lord Commander Strong, and their children's motivational drivers, set in the incompetent and dying Viserys's court, and then use director privilege to shift the Battle of the Stepstones timeline forward, such that I can highlight Daemon's character and the Valyrians, as well as giving the Stepstones their due as a strategic position that will be used all throughout the coming war, as well as making it a major point of dissension between Queen Alicent and Princess Rhaenyra in small council meetings, where they start going at each other's throats a bit more, and it starts spreading down to the children who are told things. And I do think season 1 for me would end similarly to this one, with the king dying, the High Towers taking over the throne, and the death of Luke as both camps rush to get allies. I would have Alicent being more nefarious and self-acting. I think it does no favors to her character whatsoever to just be so weak and passive. Like, it doesn't even feel like she's unempowered. It feels like she's actively trying to be unempowered. So I would empower her a bit more, just wouldn't necessarily be nice. I'd have Rhaenyra be more hard-nosed and rebellious, actually much like she was in her youth. I'd keep that more even up to her adulthood, because it would show more of that conflict between Rhaenyra and Alicent. Like, maybe she'd be needling her, maybe she'd really be poking her with certain things. Otto, to me, he'd be less obvious. And Daemon, I would make him a vindictive loose cannon in my version. Mm-hmm. I'd basically be anybody who slights him, he's basically going to go and just absolutely kill, mm-hmm. you know, and you just don't want to be within his
cutting range.
Exactly. So that would be my thought on that one.
That's really good.
Yes, quite good.
Oh, thank you.
Great show. Did it for me. I appreciate that. That was wonderful.
Now get in the writing room. 72 hours straight. Exactly. All right. Maybe before we get to the awards, let's check out if we have any viewer comments. Yes. So going back, we have Bear UNLV. He is stating, yay, he loves the recap. Didn't know that there would be one, so he's super excited. So that is good. He also laughed at the hand and foot disease joke. Yeah, that gets him every time. So he also said, I wish they put more emphasis on how uncomfortable the dragons can be and make the villains somehow.
Yeah,
that actually is an excellent take there. Like, they could have showed like why dragons aren't such a major part anymore in the show, and that the characters, the people, they no longer have the strength or will to control them anymore. They mm-hmm. become more wild. I really like that idea. That's a good one.
That's so fun.
Yeah, yeah, he agrees. It's just weird that all of a sudden, both of the dragons, they didn't listen to their owners. They just did their own thing.
Even their character development sucked.
Oh no!
Uh,
I'm sorry, CGI dragons. That is unfortunate. All right, so that's all for now. We go to the awards.
The awards, the much awaited and anticipated awards. First award, best birth scene. Let's see what we decide that. Let's begin with Sesh. What was your best birth scene?
I would actually say maybe Lena's birth was, I felt the best done. It wasn't over the top violent, which or two others were, and they all resulted in death. So many things to gauge on. She had agency for it though, and grace and strength, and we really didn't know her well at all, but it felt sad to see her, begging her dragon to take her out of the world in a way of her own choosing.
Good. My best birth scene was actually Rhaenyra's last birth with the intercut dragon screams.
Of course.
While ridiculous, the choices made in aftermath frustrated me the least of all the birth scenes. That's how I gauge it. How am I frustrated the least?
Okay, that's fair.
Would the intercut dragons then get the award for best birth scene supporting characters?
Best maesters, possibly.
Oh, best maesters. Yeah, probably true. Yeah, they're the only ones who saved the mother, right? So
yeah, sure.
Give them their rings. Yeah, can I say none of them? Is that valid? I would not give out an award. No. So since we have to give out an award, I mean, we're obliged at this point. If I had to pick one, I guess I'd say Lena's, because in my own mind, I've decided that scene ends with a baby bursting out of her dragon flame skeleton, dancing the can-can down the moon and firelit beach.
I wish. That was the one thing more than anything I wish in this show, and didn't happen.
So it looks like best birth scene goes to Lena's birth, as we are voted 2-1.
Good job, Lena. Good job. Way to die.
Oh gosh. All right, let's go to our next award, which is best expositor. Jonathan, you want to start us off with that one?
Oh, there are a lot of good options here. I mean, they really exposited hard this season. You have Viserys early. I mean, he was an exposition machine. You had Daemon at times, but who does it come down to? For me, my nominee is Otto. He exposits with the best of them. Now, it's true, it could just be his character being that brash and forward, saying exactly what he's thinking at all times. Yeah. The sad part is, that's actually exposition. But, hey, I'm going with Otto.
Okay. All right, so let's see. Our mine would be Larys. He just does not have a subtle bone in his body, and it irritates me every time I see him.
That wearing green comment, that does start pushing it over.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that tips the iceberg a little bit. What you got, Sesh?
I forgot about that. I'm actually officially changing my answer to him.
Larys wins.
So on the nose. It's just he's so on the nose. He loves to just explain everything to everyone. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's good manipulation, but yeah, it's him.
Yeah. Well deserved. Good job, Larys. Good job.
So our next award goes for most memorable character. Sesh, you want to start us off?
Yeah, again, my bias comes through. I'm a Rhaenys fan. Busting through the floor with your dragon like she did is memorable just on its own. She was graceful, clever, and caring while also not taking any flack from anyone throughout the whole season. Yeah.
She was a class act. That is very true. Mine is, well, it's Luke. Bless his soul. He tried and got killed for trying to be there for his family. He's like, I'll never forget Luke.
Oh, that is sweet. For me, it's got to be King Viserys. I mean, he's just the most well-rounded character. He had some great moments near the end of his life. Plus, there's at least a 10% chance he's not actually dead or comes back as a mummy next season. So, he's got staying power, possibly.
Well, that's a split vote, but I would lean for King Viserys because he had a great arc and a great death, and he did it. He did a great job. So that brings us to Best Actor. Can you start us off?
Yeah, I mean, there have really been some good ones in this series. Paddy Considine has been a treat as King Viserys. And I've really liked Steve Toussaint as Corlys. A lot in the scenes he's been in, though, they sadly have been few and far between. Like, he just emotes really well in certain areas that are amazing because the lines that he gets are pretty tough to work with. So I give him a lot of credit. However, just due to the bulk of the scenes, I will give Paddy Considine the nod for just a terrific final act as character that was emotional, complex, and gave body to a script that had major dialogue issues at times. One final thing, though. That all said, I do want to give a special nod to Millie Alcock as young Rhaenyra. I thought she had the right amounts of energy, moxie, rebelliousness, and emotion throughout her episodes, and I think she definitely kept her character from falling flat, which is something a lesser actor would have done with the same script, in my opinion. So I feel she really does deserve some recognition here. I think if they wrote her dialogue and script a little better, I would have chosen her because I think she was definitely one of the best actors thus far.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with you on that. For my best actor, definitely Paddy Considine. His emotion for his family and the struggle of his life was beautifully done from beginning to end.
Yep, I'm gonna give it to King Paddy as well. He had his episode where he finally passes and he completely stole the show with it. Most of the acting for everyone, I would say, is good, but nobody really stole a scene like he was able to in that episode.
Congratulations, Paddy. Our next award goes to Best Dragon. Sesh, you want to start us off?
Sure. Damon's, I'll say. Sarax it is. I forget the exact pronunciation on it. I like the lanky boy. That's all the characterization, right? That's the dragon. We haven't seen them a whole lot.
Mine is Baelys, or the Red Queen. Rhaenys' dragon, had restraint and class, listened to her owner after being mistreated, and did what was necessary to send a message without eating anyone. Go, Baelys.
So for me, some people might say Aemon's dragon, Vhagar. He's big, he eats other dragons and the riders, spits hot fire, and kills major characters on screen. But only one dragon busts through stone floors and kills hundreds just by flying, and that's Melee's. Yeah. Rhaenys' dragon, the Red Queen. Hallowed be her name. So congrats, Melee's. You can stop by the studio anytime, pick up your award.
Just don't light us on fire.
Yeah, try not to.
Not by dragon, please.
So our next award is most sympathetic character. I feel for Helaena Targaryen. No one talks to her. Her mother hates her. She was forced to marry her brother, who treats her like crap. I mean, she basically has to raise her kids without a caring father or grandparents that care about them or her at all. And she has an incredible ability to tell the future, and no one cares.
Oh, you're right. You're right. She's very sympathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put her on my list as well. The one and only daughter. She's just a poor weird girl and very ignored, completely sidelined. The Valerian girls come to mind as well for just being sidelined, ignored, and they are going through some weird times as well.
Yeah. Well, I went in a different direction here. For me, it is former hand Lionel Strong. All he does is show up at the council each day wanting to do what's best for the kingdom. He gives great advice to the king, the only one, by the way, and he does his best to be a good parent despite having one kid who is an absolute menace to society and pervert, and another who breaks his vows to have an illegal tryst with the princess, resulting in 3 bastard children, further helping to legitimize the crown. He even tries resigning from his own prominent position to deal with those family issues and avoid a possible conflict of interest. And what does he get for it? Burned alive with his son by his other son's command.
Very sad.
I mean, poor Lionel Strong. He tried.
You make a really good point there. That is really sad.
Very, very correct on all of that. This is factual.
That said, he didn't have to marry his brother.
Yes.
So
we don't know.
Who's a serial rapist?
Oh God. So sad.
Who do we want to give it to?
That's
all
a
of
tough
them?
one. Tie.
Yeah.
Tie.
Split the award.
Our next award goes for Best Parent. Who is the best parent? Sesh, you want to start us off?
I do, because this one I feel like I have a very clear answer, and I don't think there's any real comparison. I will actually say Rhaenys. I'm fangirling once again. She's like her and her husband. I mean, more so her. She's at least aware when she's putting her children in harm's way. None of the other parents seem to even consider that in their power grab agendas. And also, none of her kids turned out to be weirdos, bullies, or worse.
Very
good that's point. Actually a good point, that last part.
Solid. That's solid. Until she burned herself and her unborn child, I would have said Laena Valerian. She seemed to really care about her children and where they grew up. She had empathy for them and worried about their well-being. They seem like well-mannered, sweet girls, and that is definitely not from Daemon's raising them.
Yeah, the self burning probably wasn't the best for her, but if you're gonna die, I guess might as go out some way. For me, Rhaenys appears to love her kids and grandkids, and has a very strong desire to protect them. But we really don't see her spending much time with them on the show. Like, we really haven't seen much of a scene between them where they're talking, her giving advice, her being protective. Come to think of it, there is only one actual positive parental action we've seen on this show other than Laena. And that is hand Lionel Strong, pulling his son Harwin aside to try coaching him on inappropriate behavior and its consequences, and through to offer up his own position and standing with the king to deal with that family issue. Yes, he has a truly terrible kid in Larys, but it doesn't seem to be for lack of a good parent. In fact, I think Larys even said he was a great parent, just that Larys thinks he's too moral and ethical.
That's so sad.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going with the late Lionel Strong. Fat lot of good it did for him, though. And really, that point with Rainus having good children is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, that was a good one. He waited until he had 3 kids. The princess.
Seriously.
Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know. He assumed his son
doesn't have brunette children.
That's so sad.
Seriously, does it bother anyone else that like Allison is a brunette and she doesn't have brunette children? There's one brunette parent and then one blonde parent, and then for Ray they come out brunette. Like, come on.
Unfair.
So I agree from a genetic standpoint. However, I will say it was established in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Game of the Thrones, yes. It was established in Game of Thrones that often the characteristics of the child take after the father in this series. So
it's still annoying. Though.
It is annoying.
That's I mean that can happen, but just like what are the odds? Like every single time, both ways for both of them. That's like what 6-7 children. That's a lot more.
Yes. All right.
Okay, our final question of the night: ratings. And would you watch the next season? All right, I'm going to start. I gave this overall season a 4.5. The points are given mainly for the amazing work, the costuming, cinematography, musical scoring, and some of the actors' performances have done. However, it was all dressed around a broken skeleton of a story. Yes, I would, because I would watch the show continuously because I want to see how they handle an intended season, since they really didn't plan for this to be a true season. Those are my thoughts.
Yep.
Yeah. I will give the show one more season of watching, although my hopes are not that high. It would have been nice to going into the season with them saying, just kidding, this isn't a real first season. This is just a prequel to the prequel, everyone. Calm down. And them not saying that until so late into the season, where it almost felt like it was them making excuses for the missteps they made, does not give me confidence. But I will go into the next season knowing where things stand and with higher expectations for that aspect of it. And as much as I think they fumbled the ball in this, I saw glimpses of good stuff, like the good old Game of Thrones days, where I hope, given the right focus, they can really bring out the best of the story and characters. Overall, I feel like this show was almost all right. There was a lot of bad and some good. It wasn't really like 50-50. Like not every episode was okay. Some were actually bad. And aside from like the sets, wardrobe, acting overall, I think I'm going to agree with Maria and land somewhere between a 4 and a 5.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up in terms of them going ahead and making excuses for missteps, because the most interesting thing about this is this show has not been getting a lot of criticism. In fact, it's been getting a ton of love by most reviewers. So it's interesting they would even bring something like this up, unless, who knows, in our viewing audience, are any of you the showrunners to House of the Dragon? Like we do seem to be one of the few groups of people out there who were looking at the show and just not really seeing it. So, and again, it's not because of any agency or bias. Like pretty much all the shows we've done, we've universally liked. This has just been, well, an absolute mess when it comes to character development and motivations, dialogue, plot, timeline. I mean, I'll say, like, I have to say the good things too, of course. It had terrific cinematography, scoring, and costuming. Those were fantastic. And there were some really well-directed scenes. But to me, and it sounds like all of us, it simply came off as window dressing for a show that had major failings. it's extraordinarily difficult for me to properly rate this show, especially since the news broke that this season was actually never initially intended to be made and was only thrown together when HBO offered to fund an additional season as prequel. So, on the one hand, you want to rate this as you would any new show. But on the other hand, there's a part of me that just wants to throw out this season entirely, as it isn't actually representative of the show according to what the showrunners are saying. So I just don't know what to say here. If I didn't know that this was a Game of Thrones prequel and rating this as a standalone, I'd say that compared to other new shows, I'd rate season 1 of House of the Dragon a 4 out of 10. And I'd say it's a show that does have some promise as a story, but unfortunately falls well short to the point that it's surprising it was picked up without significant rework of the scripts. And for me, I'd no longer be watching because of that, because I wouldn't expect there to be any real improvements on it. But based on the additional info that it's a prequel to Game of Thrones and this season 1 wasn't actually planned to be part of the show, I am willing to just throw out my rating and watch season 2 so I can properly evaluate and rate this show in the manner it was supposed to be watched, much like both Maria and Sesh said. That said, this show is on very thin ice with me. And for me, it does not get any additional excuses after this. Like, if they lay an egg to start out season 2, to me, it's on them. And I'm almost certainly not watching anymore after that. This season was tough for me to watch as a viewer. And if season 2 is just more of the same, I just yeesh. Like, I can't watch a story that has very little plot, with very little character development, with not good dialogue. Plain and simple. I don't care how good the cinematography and directing is.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's sometimes it takes a little longer for seasons or shows or IPs to get to this point, but I really feel like they're kind of just riding the coattails of the fandom rather than making anything that's, the quality of what the fans originally like. Like right now, like, yeah, it has a lot of viewers, but I know it's not the same numbers as Game of Thrones was. It's not close. There's not enough people that care about it. There's not enough people talking about it. There's not enough people that it could reach like the first show did.
Yeah, so the more silent people are skipping out, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah, I think people just really aren't watching it like they were Game of Thrones. Like, it's really the bigger fans that are watching it, or like the people who do podcasts on the entire show.
Anyone have ratings for them for season 1? Throwing out ratings. Let's look at the comments, the viewership. It seems like we might have depressed them based off of our reviews for this show. They're gonna have to go off and be like, man, I'm watching a 4 out of 10 show. That's not great. So, all right. Well, we won't put you guys on the spot there. So
I will say though, it's okay if you like it. It's just it's okay to have, I think there are lots of areas in this that were just not our thing, or why we liked Game of Thrones originally. But, some people's yucks are others' yums, and vice versa.
Very true.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the point of this show is to try taking it from more a director and a directorial cinematography, writing, dialogue sort of viewpoint versus, say, a pure fan viewpoint, which might be oh wow, look at this, they're remaking House of the Dragon, and it contains all these characters who I liked and wanted to read about and find out more about. So it is a slightly different take than most people as well. And if you like the Game of Thrones universe, if you like the characters, if you like the houses, that's probably going to fall into your ratings as well. And so I would imagine that would get you a little bit.
I mean, like with us, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're all not book readers of this series.
No.
Right.
So yeah, so it's it's the fandom hits a little different for us, and they need to cast maybe a wider net in some areas that didn't quite catch us.
Yes. Also, we did get one last second rating in here. So we have Bear, who gives this a 6 out of 10.
Wow.
He loved the last 3 episodes, and he thinks that redeemed the show in some degree. And I think that's fair. I mean, those last 3 episodes were definitely a marked improvement from the previous 7. For me, episode 10 did not fall right with me at all, but 8 and 9 I thought were actually very good.
I enjoyed 7, and I did not hate 9. So for me, it was like I think it was good to finally have those episodes that were good episodes. Like I was waiting for those, maybe longer than I wanted to wait, but it was good to actually have them.
All right. Well, it is that time. Before we get to that outro, though, we are announcing there has been, we announced that we're going to cover The Witcher.
And they just went crazy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, man, Henry Cavill, he's one of our listeners, viewers of the podcast. And he's like, I cannot have these guys skewer me in my show, so I'm
Just
out.
so you know, I'm walking away.
Yeah. Let Liam Hemsworth deal with these people. That's the only thing I can assume. But
the timing is amazing. Like this is gonna be a perfect time to rewatch for me, or to get into it and see where it goes.
Yes, so we are going forward with it. Listen, fans, if you start shanking each other in the streets over this, please don't. Please don't. We have enough reviews to keep you satiated, keep you angry but inside, and indoors while listening, possibly double viewing, double liking, and we'll go from there. But that's what we're doing. The Witcher, episode 1, season 1, will be our next episode next week. So thank you all so much for joining us, watching to the end. We really appreciate your support, and then hopefully we brought you some good insight and laughs too tonight, because laughing is important.
Indeed.
Much like those 4 girls who took all of the Halloween candy from our doorstep.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Well, we tossed a coin to The Witcher.
Yeah, that was a mistake on our part, and we have learned our lesson.
You gotta expect some mischief.
Yeah, and just like we supported them and their candy-eating habits, it's your support that makes all of this worth it. If you like this show, please share, subscribe, like, heart, do all of those likey things. And if you hated this show, you make sure to watch this show twice, because we got metrics in place for that, and that will show us how much contempt you have for us, and we will take that and we will make sure that we make these shows better for you in the future. So just keep watching, keep double liking, and we'll get there, I promise you. Our next episode, season 1, episode 1, The Witcher, will be on Monday, November 7th at 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern. So looking forward to seeing you then, where we will be reviewing that episode. And until next time,
Also going to your Witcher, oh Melly, plenty. We gotta work on that.
We're not singing.
could you do it better?
Everyone can sing better.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Good night. Happy season 1. Happy Halloween. All right.